It has been a fascinating journey through sports broadcasting. For my guest today, Mark Mosback. He's director of live production and OTT at the Ironman Group, but he's done so much more over the course of his career, from ESPN to Golf Channel, list goes on. So fascinating is his life that we're going to document it. We're going to talk about it here on this platform, on the Onto Something podcast. I'm Bryan Fenley with Fox Sports Radio and Tennis Channel. Mark, excited to have you on. We're going to talk about your work life, but we know there's a life beyond that. Contrary to what a lot of people think who work in this industry, there is life outside of work. You're a dad. We'll have fun exploring it all, and I'm excited to have you on.
Thanks, Brian. Great to be here. Really happy for the time.
So you've currently are working a lot with the Ironman Group and putting on events as far as the production standpoint of what you're doing. When you think about weathering this career of yours professionally, where do you see your own Ironman come out in your own being able to survive all these years and do great work?
Well, well, thank you. I think for the most part, for me, it's a lot of things that I was taught early in my career. It's dedication, it's the attention to detail, it's working with good people, having good plans, and really developing that team atmosphere and team attitude that comes with obviously covering sports, but also in TV. So I think that process and the people I've learned from throughout my career has really helped that longevity and being able to adapt and kind of change as the landscape of TV changes.
Being so good at adapting as TV changes, the ever evolving landscape, what kind of learner are you? And how do you keep tabs on everything that's going on? Because learning, keeping with the times has to be at the forefront of how you've been able to bounce seemingly so without hesitation from one sport to another and make it look easy.
That's the trick, is trying to make it look easy, right? If we can fool everybody, make it look that it's easy, then we're doing a good job with it. A lot of it has to do with just jumping in and doing. I think for the most part, for me, I've learned well by watching, but there's nothing like just getting into the fire and doing it for yourself. And I've had some great teachers along the way. At ESPN, it was Michael Feinberg, Tyrone Fryston, Scott Hecht. Golf Channel is Andrew Smiley, Matt Hegarty, Alan Robinson. Just a great list of people that are great storytellers. And a lot of it, especially on the directing side, it's not only the visual, but you have to listen. It's that medium of listening to the story and really working with your producers and your team and your commentators and camera operators to tell that story. And that's the fun part of the job, is just telling a story. And the producer sitting next to you, executive producer, and you listening to them. And that's really what's kind of helped me make the transition from directing studio shows at ESPN and Golf Channel, now really being the director of streaming and production and OTT at Ironman Group, is having that ability and listening and working with people who have told some great stories over the period. So I've been able to now really pivot my career into more of an executive coordinating producer role from directing it and working with people to tell those stories at Ironman, and to really work with the production house vendors that we hire to tell those stories and talk about the camera angles we want and the athletes we want to focus on, and working with our content team who does phenomenal work with interviews and incorporating those into broadcast. So it's really a culmination of working together with a lot of great people over the years.
What makes a good story to you?
Wow, a lot of it, it's just, first off, it has to be honest and truthful. I think if it's not a true story, people can see through it really easily. And then it's compelling. It's what is making that person tick. What is special about their journey, and then it becomes our job to bring that out of them. And a lot of times I've found, and I'm sure you know this, is a lot of people are very humbled by their journeys. No one wants to expand on anything. So it's really incumbent upon us to ask those questions, to really probe and get uh, that out of them, and kind of showcase that to the viewer. So a lot of it is, yeah, just having people have that open and honest conversation with you, and really just giving that extra kind of. Nobody likes to brag, but trying to get that out of them, I think, is really important.
When you're dealing with these competitors, and Mark Mosback is with me on Bryan Fenley, Ironman, and you consider what they put their bodies through and the resilience and the respect you have for their craft and the strength that you see that they possess, you telling their stories, how does that give you strength in seeing what they've done in ways in which you can be like, oh my goodness, that's incredible?
It is, and that's part of the hard part of telling these stories is not to get so awestruck that you forget to keep telling the story. Right? As you're watching these people race, like, wow, this is incredible. Obviously anyone can run, but no one can run like that. Anyone can ride a bike. No one can ride. There's just things that they do that you're like, wow, that's really impressive. And like you said, what they put their body through, not only during race time, but the preparation that they do. And it's a grueling season. And they don't only just race Ironman events, they're racing other events throughout the course of the year as professional athletes. So it's just a constant grind on their body. And how in tune they are to the nutrition and the training and hydration. It's really they're fine-tuned machines basically is what they're cranking this out. So it's very impressive. And I try hard not to get in awe and lose sight of the bigger picture of the story that we're telling because you can really focus on one person like wow that's just like a Christian Blumenfeld when he was racing in Kona and then uh, obviously he won in the 70.3 in St. George. You watch him and he's they all look like I don't want to say average people because they're not average, but they look like just the guy next door. And you're watching him race, and it's just so impressive. And you're like, oh wait, we still need to continue telling the story. You don't want to just focus on that one aspect. You have to really keep sight of the bigger picture because it is so impressive. It's easy to get distracted.
If I was to ask one of your kids what's most impressive about their dad, Mark, what do you think they would say to me?
Oh gosh. Hopefully that I'm always there for them and very supportive of whatever they want to do in life and kind of letting them make their own path. I think, and you know this in TV, when you get in, it's holidays, it's nights, it's weekends. There's a lot of long hours. It's a grind. So they've seen me kind of make my path, and they understand what hard work goes into and the dedication that it takes. So I just support them on their path, whatever they want to do and however they want to do it, as long as they're happy. I've told them for years. Uh, Normally, even though if it wasn't for the long hours, I wouldn't feel like I was working half the time. When you enjoy and love what you do, that's when you find yourself successful. So you just really try to help them find their passion and make their own way in life.
The idea of listening the way you do when it comes to working and being around your colleagues, and whether that's in the control room or figuring out what's the story that you want to go with next. What about that listening muscle you have at home and how that comes into play and how important that is and what that looks like from your perspective?
Yeah, I think sometimes you can I guess be too for me I'm I've been accused of being too easy at home. Let's put it that way. I was trying to find a good way to say it, but yeah, there's times, and my older boys tease me all the time. They're like, you were a lot more firm with us, and now the younger two, they're like, you let them get away with anything. And I'm like, well, I realize over time certain things aren't as important anymore. It's really finding just like anything else, every child is different. Every child has different needs. And yeah, I'm probably a little softer than now that I am a little bit older. But all the kids are different too. So you try to figure out and weave that way with each of them and kind of listening to their needs and helping them hopefully come to their own solutions.
What were you like as a kid?
Depends on who you ask. Um, I was active. I had an older brother. We were always outside playing sports. You name it. There's basketball games, tennis ball game, baseball games in the street. We were out to all hours of the night. My mother had one rule: when the street lights came on, we better be home. Otherwise, she was locking the door. So I think we had like 5 minutes when the street lights came on to get home. So yeah, very active throughout my whole youth and even through high school and college, just playing sports and really enjoying the competitive nature of things. Part of our neighborhood fun time was actually having my brother, who's a couple years older than me, on different teams, and watching us go at it was always an enjoyment for the other kids in the neighborhood, because he and I were both so competitive and always wanted to beat the other person. It became, just something for everyone to watch and kind of laugh at.
If you were to put up like a win-loss record between you and your brother, whether it's basketball, baseball, whatever sport you did, what's the head-to-head matchup between you two and everything you went up against each other with?
At this point in time, we're probably close to 50-50. I'd probably have to give him the edge, only because, he was older and kept me down for quite a number of years. But yeah, once I kind of came into my own, we're pretty close on a lot of things. And I think that's why we were always so competitive growing up. It's just the way it was.
As you started to come into your own as you were growing up, and Mark Mosback is with me, I'm Bryan Fenley. How did you come to the realization, or not so how did you, but when did you sort of figure out that you knew what you were good at in life and that you were going to go in that direction?
Wow. I think we all have a dream, right? And I think any little kid that plays baseball, football, growing up with my primary sports, my dream was to go to Notre Dame and play college football at Notre Dame. That was my dream. I was lucky enough to go there for football camps. My parents took me there. Met Lou Holtz and Skip Holtz and did the camps there, and it was a phenomenal experience. But at some point in time, you realize I'm not that big. I'm not fast enough, and I was able to play at Holy Cross for a year up in Worcester, which was great. And then after that, like, I found that I wanted to get into a career where I felt passionate about, and sports was one of it. And it was one of those things where it's like, I don't know what I want to do, but I know I want to work in sports. And it just kind of fell into place getting into ESPN and kind of letting it fall from there. It was a lot of trial and error and figuring things out, but knowing that this is kind of where I wanted to be. This was something that I felt passionate about, and I was going to try and make it work any way it could. And it just happened to kind of my path, and the people I met early in my career at ESPN led me to the production side of things. And it's really taken off from there. I've been very fortunate.
What is your own Rudy story?
Uh, well, for me, I'm the type of person, I haven't taken the normal progression in this career. I've never worked in local television. A lot of people who have directed from my end have been technical directors, have been on the technical side, camera operators. I've kind of bypassed all of that. Um, I think it was just right place, right time, and really having some good mentors at ESPN from my early days of, the Rick Pivas, the Kevin Stallworthys, the Linda Wilhites of the world, that really helped me understand TV and knowing what it took to do things. And I think Rick was funny. He looked at me one time and he's like, "Listen," he goes, "a negative for you is not having the background in local television." He goes, "You don't need to know how to do it, but you need to know how to ask someone what to do."
Mm.
He goes, "I don't expect you to become a switcher to do your job, but you need to understand what the TD is doing while they're operating." He goes, "You have to know what you can ask them, what you can't ask them, um, I guess, what will work and what won't work." And that was something that stuck with me and still stays with me to this day. I don't need to know how a lot of things work, but I need to know what they can do and the people that can make it happen.
When you know that, it probably adds to what would be your credibility, say in a control room.
Mm-hmm.
People know what that you are capable of knowing, maybe not verbatim everything that they do, but you know what it takes from them. And then when you demand, in a leadership standpoint, the respect and the idea of knowing what other people do, in a sense, how does that sort of empower a production and in a control room when people can look to you to sort of have the guidance, knowing that you've been there before, or at least you can sympathize or empathize with
Yeah,
them?
exactly. And I think that's something that is the trick in any production, right? Is knowing your team, knowing the group that you're working with, but being very cognizant that it's not a me centric uh, work style. You know, we're all dependent on each other. You walk in and nobody ever, and you know this in TV, no one ever goes into work and goes, I don't want to do a good job today. I think we as people are harder on ourselves than anyone could ever be. If anyone ever makes a mistake, they're going to be harder on themselves than I could ever be. The producer, anyone in that room could be on anybody. And that's what something I've always focused on. I try to focus on the positive in building those relationships and really giving people that ownership of their position, and respecting their opinion and asking a lot of opinions and questions of people like, hey, what do you think about this? You know, granted, myself or the producer may have the final say on things, but you gather that input because you really want to make it a team centric broadcast. It's about us as a group and what we can do collectively, not what my idea is. You know, if someone comes up with a better idea in a meeting, we're going to go with that. It's, you know, I view it myself as I am the person that is a facilitator, especially now with Ironman. I'll get the commentators together and I've told them I'm learning about the athletes and I'm learning about the triathlon uh, sport, but I don't know it like they do. So I'll ask questions and then I let them kind of go with it. And that really dictates where we're going to go with a lot of the storylines that we're going to talk about.
When you're asking questions, is there an approach to which you think the questions need to be asked or the content in the question so that you come off as curious and willing to learn, but at the same time, you're not looked at as someone who's an outsider or doesn't know what they're talking about? How do you find that balance?
Well, and that's a trick, right? Because no one ever wants to come off as a know-it-all and think you're the smartest person in the room. But at the same time, you need that credibility where someone goes, this guy has no clue what he's talking about. Why should I even listen to them? So it's balancing, knowing. I've gathered enough of the technical knowledge over the years to be dangerous. Let's put it that way. Not proficient, but be dangerous. So there's that understanding that you build up, and I think a lot of it is just like with anything else. People can see when you're being fake, and if I'm talking about something they know I've never done, they're like, wait a minute, that's not exactly how it's supposed to go. So I've always been very honest in my time where if there's something I'm not sure about, I'll say, hey guys, listen, I've never done it this way before, or I'm unsure about this, but in past experiences, I've done X, Y, and Z that I feel applies to this. And then the conversation goes from there. You try to give your experience and give that weight to what you're talking about, even if it's something that you're not completely comfortable with.
And when you are ingesting all these experiences from others who might be over the course of your career mentoring you or guiding you or giving you advice, how would you assume the power of the rate in which you receive feedback? To what degree and how that can play a part in somebody's growth?
I think being able to receive feedback is paramount. I mean, if and in this industry, and really a lot of industries, you have to be willing to accept honest, critical feedback. There are times I've left rooms and you get the feedback, and I feel like, oh my gosh, I don't even know what I'm doing based on what that person just told me. You know, so there's times you really question yourself based on it. But then when I took a step back and truly listened or replayed those conversations in my mind, I was like, okay, they were right. Because your first instinct is always like, no, no, I know what I'm doing. Like you can't tell me that I was wrong on that or there's a better way. You get defensive. But when you truly listen to the feedback that you're given and put it into play, you realize that's how you're going to become a better person and a better at your career. You know, there was a time, it was one of my first All-Star games when I was ESPN. And I was with my then supervisor, Scott Hecht, at the time, who was a great mentor of mine and a great friend. And there's just one of those little things. He taught me, I guess, what it was, how to be, how to take being a professional seriously. He had a lot more remote work before he got to ESPN and had backgrounds in it. And he was just explaining the fact of, as a director of this production, you carry a lot more weight than you think you do. It just kind of realizing my role in the process, in understanding and carrying myself a certain way in the professional environment, that, like he said, he goes, is what I was doing wrong? No, he goes, but here's how you elevate yourself. And it's listening and having those little conversations that if you can put into play and take to heart and understand that people are just trying to help you be better and be a better version of yourself in your career, then yeah, the sky's the limit for anybody. But it's being able to take that direct feedback is, in the beginning, is tough, I think, for anybody.
I second what you say about Scott Hecht. Absolute gem of a human being. He's been on this conversation platform. He's a mentor, incredible human being, as you know, better
Yes.
than anyone. Mark Mosback is with me. I'm Bryan Fenley. And for you, Mark, to see the way in which feedback has transformed your life, and then the way in which it's impacted your career, and then the way in which you take the feedback, which you say, it can hurt, but if it doesn't hurt, it won't lead to growth.
Exactly.
So there's that notion. With that said, when do you get back to feeling at peace? You get the feedback and you're like, all right, I now know what I need to do next. And we all do this in the business. We beat ourselves up mentally. So then when does the peace and that stillness within you come back?
Probably within 24 hours. I'm one of those where sometimes you just need to decompress. You need to kind of let everything sit and settle. And you need to step away from whatever production you were just doing, whatever feedback you just had, and really just kind of relax a bit and then let it come to you. I think I found for myself, if I overthink it and just constantly beat myself up over it, the growth doesn't happen. It's more difficult. It's challenging. Whereas now, uh, it's getting that perspective in that space helps.
How do you relax?
Uh, yeah, a lot of it is just trying to get outside and enjoying time with my kids and my girlfriend and our dogs. And just it's funny, a lot of the relaxing stuff it's getting away from TV for a little bit and kind of realizing that there's more to life than the job.
One of your kids, I want Nathan, if I'm not
Yes.
mistaken, how proud are you of what he's working on and what he has worked on? I've seen on social media your pride in what he's doing.
Yeah, it's impressive. He's trying to get his professional bodybuilding card, and he's been working on it now for almost 2 years. And just his personal and professional growth in that end is really impressive. He's become very dedicated. It's something he's passionate about. He's a certified personal trainer. It's always great to see your kids find a passion and to be good at it. And I'm sure at some point in time within this next year he'll get his professional card. The work he puts in is impressive, and going and watching and supporting him at those shows is a joy of mine.
I know that you're not going to take a lot of credit from this because I know you're humble, but when he sees and your kids see the passion that you have, this is your opportunity to brag, Mark. How much do you think them seeing how passionate you are played into them finding their own passions as well?
Honestly, I hope it played a big role for them. I think it's one of those things where that's always been a message of mine: is find what you love and do it, and really push for it and fight for what you enjoy, and put forth the work. Nothing ever is going to come easy. But again, if it's a passion and you enjoy and you love it, then go after it and get it. And don't let anyone tell you no.
I love all that. And with those words, it's not a surprise to see what you've done in
Thank
this
you.
business and what you will continue to do. Mark Mosback, director live production and OTT, Ironman Group, worked at Golf Channel and ESPN. The list goes on. I can feel the passion. I can feel the gratitude. I can feel the family man. And I as we wrap up this conversation, you talk about relaxing, and I would think that, and from my experiences, it's hard to be totally present in the moment when you're in this business. So, what is a moment in time in nature where you were able to just be you and sit in that moment away from the busyness and the buzz that comes with a project or working in a control room with a fully staffed team?
It's funny. I've it's taken me a while to kind of realize how to truly relax and enjoy things. I think early in my career, your mind is always racing. You're always thinking about the next project. But I've been pretty fortunate in the last couple of years um, with my girlfriend now. She's kind of helped teach me to separate and decompress. And for us, a lot of times it's just sitting in the backyard, you know, having a glass of wine and a beer, watching the dogs, or going to the beach, and just finding that time for just us and just to be there, not really thinking about anything, not doing anything, not worrying about anything, is just kind of finding that time just to breathe and relax and take it in.
When you get that you time, when you have that family time, it's amazing how then when you get back to your colleagues in business, that time, you get the very best version of Mark Mosback. And when you get that, look out, world. Mark Mosback, I'm Bryan Fenley with Fox Sports Radio and Tennis Channel. Thanks for doing this, man. This was a blast.
Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it. I had a great time.